Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. We're starting here with an interesting insider report, potentially, regarding the release year of the PlayStation 6. This is once again coming from insider Detective Seeds, and he says here, the PS5 Pro 2026 update is going to carry the PlayStation hardware generation to the PlayStation 6 2029 release window. PS4 owners will be incentivized to upgrade to the PS5 Pro next year, and games will be rolling out more updates and patches, increasing how well they look and play on the Pro. This is what is allowing them to wait and release the PlayStation 6 in 2029, like I said a few months ago. He continues by saying, I know some people are saying 2028 for PS6, and they could still do the holiday season of 2028 if the head shed wants to push it out. Then they have the final say, but amongst the engineering team, they are targeting 2029 as the release to maximize the advancements they are making with the partnerships with AMD. So as always, we want to take this with a grain of salt, but what I find interesting about this is how I think a lot of people would actually love to see Sony do something like this. I've talked extensively about the rumors regarding a 2027 release date for the PlayStation 6, and every time we talk about it, you just get a tidal wave of people saying it's too soon. This generation has been weird. It feels like it got off to a very slow start. To some people, it feels like the PS5 generation just began, and you know, people don't really want to hear about the PlayStation 6. Could that change in 2 years' time, give or take? Of course it could. But I think pushing the next generation out to somewhere like late 2028 or even 2029, I think makes a lot more sense for Sony. And I also want to highlight how recently Mark Cerny did do an interview talking about working with AMD on Project Amethyst and how he made it clear that this is a multi-year thing that he's doing, which a lot of people did take that as, yeah, this is actually going to be like a 2028, 2029 thing. 2027 just simply sounds too soon based on what Mark Cerny is saying. But again, we do have to take this with a grain of salt. We're going to have to wait to see if this turns out to be true or not. And I want to know what you guys think. Would you prefer to see the PlayStation 6 roll out in 2027, or would you actually prefer 2029? We're going to move on to the next topic here, which talks about the PlayStation 5 Pro and how a new game is confirmed to be running at native 8K 60 frames per second. That game is called Pure Pull Pro. It's a sequel to 2014's Pure Pull, and the reason why I'm covering this is not only because that's kind of insane, and I'm not really sure how many people are actually going to be able to take advantage of a native 8K resolution, but I did play Pure Pull a while ago, actually, and it was a really good pool game. I don't know how many people are interested in titles like that, but it's cool to see that they're actually doing a sequel here, and they're seemingly going all out for the PlayStation version. They also confirmed that the base PS5 will run at native 4K resolution up to 120 frames per second. Obviously, this is not a super demanding game. It's not pushing the limits on anything, but they are still seemingly trying to get the most out of the hardware here. And so we've seen multiple titles hit 8K resolution on the PS5 Pro so far. Again, I don't know how many people care about this because hardly anybody has an 8K resolution screen, but at the very least, it should get downsampled. So if you are going to play this, it should look even better than native 4K on your 4K screen. Moving on from that, we're talking about Ghost of Yotei. This is being reported by WCCF Tech. It says in a recent interview with VGC, Sucker Punch revealed that Ghost of Yotei will feature a similar length to its highly successful predecessor. For the record, according to website How Long to Beat, the main story of Ghost of Tsushima requires around 25 hours, but doing side content bumped the length up to about 46 hours, while a full completionist run could have required 60 or more hours. It's definitely more than enough content to keep players engaged as long as it is as interesting as the first game. In fact, according to the developers, it will be more varied. Jason Connell says, as the creators of the last game, we played a ton of it, as we want to create a new game and we decided it was going to be set in Hokkaido. It only seemed fitting to also increase the way that we think about the freedom of the game. What does it feel like to explore? What are your options? How do you feed your next objective? To us, it really felt like an evolutionary step for us to be able to think about what freedom means to the player and to allow new ways in which you might uncover something that's interesting for you. So I wanted to make sure to cover this to let you guys know that we are getting confirmation from Sucker Punch that the overall length of Ghost of Yotei is going to be very similar to Ghost of Tsushima, which I think is great because I thought Ghost of Tsushima, for the type of game it is, a big open world title where you're exploring and also has a big story, I think it was perfect. So there you go. Moving on from that, we have a little update regarding Helldivers 2, specifically when we can expect to see a Helldivers 3. And so this was actually discussed on the Helldivers 2 Discord, and it's cool because, you know, some of the Arrowhead developers and executives, they go onto this Discord and actually interact with fans. And so they say right now, Helldivers 3 is apparently many years away. The CEO said, honestly, I'm very bought into the vision that our directors have for the game. And so it's great to be part of the ride. We honestly are focusing on the here and now. Helldivers 3 is hopefully many years away. And not that long ago, we actually heard from the community manager that they are apparently privy to years worth of content that is planned for Helldivers 2. So I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge this because obviously Helldivers 3 is not off the table. In fact, I would say that we are guaranteed to eventually get a Helldivers 3, and I'm sure Sony is going to be pushing Arrowhead to make that happen down the line. And I'm sure Arrowhead would want to do it themselves as well, but it's probably difficult to imagine what Helldivers 3 could be because Helldivers 2 is so good in many ways. You really think, like, where do we go from here? But Helldivers 2 is such a massively successful game, still has such a massive player base, and half of their revenue is still coming from microtransactions. Yeah, it makes complete sense that they're going to make sure they have years worth of content for HD2 before they even think about a release year for HD3, right? Or what that game's going to be. But I will say before moving on that there's no doubt that they probably have some, you know, high level concepts for what Helldivers 3 could be. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Helldivers property going forward. Moving on to the next topic, we have some good news for Cyberpunk 2077's latest update, how it does apparently receive a performance boost on the PS5 Pro. This is coming from Push Square. They say with the recently released patch 2.3, Cyberpunk 2077 now sports full VRR support on PS5 and PS5 Pro, and it turns out that enabling the setting produces significant performance gains. This is according to a new report from Digital Foundry, who say that the implementation of VRR goes above and beyond expectations, especially on the Pro. So for those who may not know, VRR stands for Variable Refresh Rate, basically syncs your TV or monitor with your console, combating potential issues like screen tearing while also allowing for better frame rates. And in the case of Cyberpunk, VRR actually unlocks the 60 FPS cap when using the game's performance mode. This means that the frame rate can reach up to 120 FPS in specific situations on the PS5 Pro, and based on Digital Foundry's testing, it maintains an average of 81 frames per second, so very, very smooth. But it is worth noting that this game was not specifically enhanced for the PS5 Pro. This is the only major benefit you're getting for a game like Cyberpunk 2077 on the PS5 Pro, but still, it's cool to see that the Pro hardware just naturally uplifts games, especially games as demanding as Cyberpunk 2077. I think that might be the big thing here. Is this is one of the most demanding games out there. And it's worth noting that it's not running at a low resolution either. I believe Cyberpunk 2077 runs at 1440p in its performance mode. So, I mean, we're basically looking at 1440p, roughly 80 frames per second, which is really good, I would say. That's very impressive. It just makes you wonder what CD Projekt Red could really do with a game like Cyberpunk 2077 if they choose to go all out and do a full, proper PS5 Pro enhanced patch. But we're going to move on to the final topic, and this one's very interesting. This is being reported by PlayStation Lifestyle. They say the developer behind popular Xbox exclusives Ori has said that his next game might only release on the PS5. No Rest for the Wicked, the third game by the award-winning Moon Studios, is currently in early access on PC. Moon Studios founder Thomas Mahler said that he might also consider a Nintendo Switch 2 release for No Rest for the Wicked, but might skip Xbox platforms altogether given the current market conditions. However, he is willing to discuss things with Microsoft to see what makes sense for Xbox. When he was asked to clarify the matter further, he wrote on X that he can't officially confirm anything yet, and as much as Moon Studios wants to support all consoles, just looking at the numbers, PS5 makes the most sense at the moment. Ultimately, we will ship on all platforms, but likely not at the same time. So, yeah, this did not sit well with Xbox players, which is understandable because, yes, this is coming from a developer who worked with Microsoft to create exclusive titles, some really beloved exclusive titles for that matter, with the Ori series. And so for him to just come out and flat out say that, yeah, we might be skipping the Xbox version for our third game here, not saying that it will never come to Xbox, but just that it is basically deprioritized. The priority is the PlayStation 5 and potentially the Switch 2, and that is due to market conditions. The game, as we said, is already out in early access on PC. I mean, you know, I don't want to make a bigger deal of this than is necessary, but I feel like this isn't a good sign for, you know, Xbox, truthfully. I feel like these are conversations that have already been happening where it's like, how much support is Xbox going to get going forward? You know, are developers going to start to skip the Xbox platform, deprioritize it? And when you have a developer that's, you know, again, known to work with Microsoft and made exclusives for them, just basically coming out and being like, yeah, we're going to focus on the PS5 and the Switch 2, and maybe eventually we'll get an Xbox version. I don't know. There's one other angle I want to take here with this. Could this be his way of trying to get some kind of Game Pass bag, right, from Microsoft, where he says, you know, we'll discuss things with Microsoft and see what makes sense? I don't know. You know, could this be a developer that's upset that Microsoft isn't trying to reach out to them and, you know, make another deal for an exclusive game? I don't know. I feel like it would be weird to kind of post stuff like this if that was the case, but yeah, I just figured I would let you guys know what's going on with the developer Moon Studio and, you know, their next game, No Rest for the Wicked. So I'll continue to keep you guys updated. That's going to do it for the video though, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.